John Cola with DiscountJuicers.com. I have another exciting episode for you today. What we're going to do today is we're going to make a quick juice in the Omega Vert 330 HD. The HD stands for heavy duty. Now the Omega Vert juicer is one of my favorite juicers out there currently on the market. But there's a actually fairly large problem with the Omega Vert juicer. Now while we do sell a lot of them, the one complaint that I get is actually people say it gets too much pulp in the juice and it backs up a lot. So that will specifically happen if you're not using it properly. So I have other videos on YouTube entitled Best Practices Omega Vert Juicer that you want to look at, where I show how to properly use the machine. You know, this machine is not idiot proof, as one customer that I was talking to the other day described. So, you know, there are other juicers that are absolutely idiot proof, like the Breville juicer, the Big Mouth juicer. Literally, you just put stuff in there and it juices it up. With this, you need to pay some attention. So if you're not willing to do that, don't buy the Omega Vert juicer. If you are willing to do that, you will be rewarded with a low RPM juice that basically preserves more of the nutrition. And it's a great machine, works really well if you use it properly. So what I'm going to show you today is how to make a juice in the Omega Vert. And today I have some iceberg lettuce, some sunburst squash, some cucumbers, some pears, and lemon. And what we're going to do today is we're going to make a juice in the Omega Vert juicer. Now, one of the complaints that I talked about earlier was too much pulp and backup. So the backup can be completely solved by juicing the right things, you know, feeding it at the right times, and slowing down and cutting the produce appropriately. And the other thing that's too much pulp. Now, the Omega Vert design does actually make a little bit more pulp than other juicers. Now, there's nothing wrong with the pulp. You could drink the pulp up, and actually there's been studies that show that if you have pulp in the juice will actually last longer and keep some of the beneficial properties in there longer instead of dissipating. So for that reason, I always encourage you to drink your juice right after it's made for the highest benefit. Although the manufacturer does claim that you can store the juice 72 hours, and yes, you can absolutely store the juice 72 hours, it'll be good, but it's always better the soonest you drink it right after it's made. Of course, you know, taking 72-hour-old juice or 24-hour-old juice to work to drink, you know, some juice that's been hanging out a while is much better than a coffee or, you know, a soda or even bottled or canned juices from the store. So always think good, better, best, and always try to do the best you possibly can. I prefer to drink my juices actually right after they're made. Another tip I want to give you really quick is on cleaning the machine. Cleaning is the number one hated aspect of juicing for most people. And on any juicer, no matter what juicer you have, it's always best to clean the machine right after you're done juicing. If you drink your juice and then clean up the machine, you know, the juice and the carotenoids are staining the machine, and it's just going to kind of dry out and make it harder to clean. So always clean your juicer right after it's made. What we're going to do today is we're going to show you guys how to reduce the amount of pulp in the juice. So, you know, some people may use a little strainer sieve. So I have a little strainer sieve that you could kind of put over the collection cup, or use a Pyrex cup, or, you know, after you juice it, you could pour it through this to get some of the pulp out. But if you don't want to buy a strainer, a really easy way to do it was actually another suggestion from a customer is to ReJuice your juice. Now this won't work in every juicer, but it works really well in the Omega Vert juicer if you follow the proper procedures to do it. So next what we're going to do is we're going to start juicing this stuff, and after I juice the stuff, we're going to go ahead and show you how to rejuice your juice and use the proper techniques to do it properly, because if you just rejuice your juice without following the proper techniques, it actually may mess up even more. So you got to pay attention when you're using the Omega Vert. First, let's just start juicing. We're going to go ahead first and prepare all our produce. So to do that, we're going to take some of the different produce items here. For example, I like to pre-cut all my produce before I juice it. So on things like cucumbers, we have English cucumbers here. I like to cut them in half, and then I'll just cut them in half again, right down the middle. And now these can be fed into the machine. And you're going to alternate feeding items into the Omega Vert juicer. So the cucumbers is one nice thing that will actually help move the fiber through the machine. One of the biggest problems in the Omega Vert is this pulp outlet port will get blocked with pulp if you're not paying attention. So things like celery and leafy green vegetables like kale, collards, Swiss chard, dandelions, they should be chopped up into little maybe like 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch pieces, along with the celery, because those strings can stick up the chute. The other thing, you want to rotate and alternate produce. So if you put a handful of celery in there, after the celery or the leafy greens, put a carrot through there. And that'll help push and cleanse out and keep that chute clean and keep things coming out the chute. If things stop running out the chute, then you should stop and figure out what's going on and correct it, instead of just continuing to juice. Because if you continue to juice and nothing's coming out the chute, guess what? That's going to only increase the amount of pulp you're getting. Plus, the machine's not going to be as efficient as it should be because it's not working properly due to user error. Next, let's go ahead and cut up the pears. On the pears, really simple. We're just going to cut it into pieces so that it can fit in the machine. And I'm not going to juice the little stem of the pear. That'll actually get caught in the machine also, so not good. But I do juice the seeds. Now, you know, every different seed may contain some naturally occurring toxins, like in apple seeds there's cyanide, and I choose to juice some seeds sometimes. Sometimes I'll remove the seeds, sometimes I'll juice them. I believe in small quantities there may be some really good nutrition in some of the seeds, like B17 or Laetrile. So now that we got our pears cut up, we're going to go ahead and cut up our sunburst squash. Now, sunburst squash is a nice vegetable to juice. It's basically a water-rich vegetable, so it's going to add a nice liquid to your juice, and actually a nice also yellow color. And they happen to be on sale this week, so pretty much everything I'm juicing today is because it was on sale. All this stuff is organic except for the cucumbers, which are pesticide-free. So on the sunburst, we're just basically going to cut it up into pieces so that it can fit down the chute of the machine. And that'll be fine. There's no strings in here, so it'll juice relatively easy. So you can see we have a few piles. You know, I'm making a pile of cucumbers, a pile of pears, and a pile of sunburst. Next, we're going to take our lemon, and you don't need to juice a lot of lemon. A little bit goes a long way. So we're just going to probably juice in 1/4 of the lemon. And yes, you can juice the lemon seeds. If you read the instruction manual, for those of you that do, it will say in the Omega Vert instruction manual that you're not supposed to juice the seeds. Now they messed that up. You're not supposed to juice any pits. You can totally juice small seeds. Now, if you're juicing seeds in something like a cantaloupe, you do want to, not feed all the seeds in at once, because that'll also actually clog up the chute. You want to feed in a few seeds at a time in rotation along with everything else. It'll crush those up and actually spit them out with the pulp. So there's our lemon. Next is the iceberg lettuce. On the iceberg, this won't fit into the machine, so we're just going to have to cut this up. And I like to just cut off little sections of it, and you can see there's a little section I cut off there. And all we got to do is just cut that in half, and now this will actually fit in the machine nice and easily. So we're just going to go ahead and cut this into a few more sections that we could easily feed into the machine. So now that I got some of this produce prepared, this is how you want to do it if you're juicing in the vert. You want to have your produce to start with, then you're going to prepare it properly, cut it up, and then you're ready to juice in the vert. What I like to do is I'll feed in one produce item at a time, always then taking a different produce item, so I'm doing rotation. So for example, I may start with the lettuce, then I'll put a piece of sunburst squash, then I'll put a piece of pear, then I'll put a piece of cucumber in, and continue on that until I'm out of the produce. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and turn the Omega Vert juicer on, and we're first going to feed in the iceberg lettuce. 2 nice chunks here. And once again, as you notice, I'm not actually using a pusher to feed things in. If you're using the pusher on the Omega Vert, you're probably feeding things in too quickly. The pusher should only be used to unclog or unjam the machine if there's something stuck in the feed chute. The main issue with the Omega Vert is you need to give it time to work. Like if you're chewing up a big bite of something, and your mouth you're not done swallowing it, and you try to chew something else, it's got to go somewhere. It's not going to work. So the Omega Vert works the same way. One of the ways you can look is down the chute, and if you see produce still working in the chute, then it's not ready for the next chunk of produce. Sometimes if you see produce in the chute, that means it's not getting pushed through, so you may need to juice a carrot at that point to help move things through. Let's go ahead and put some more lettuce in there. Next, we're going to go ahead and put a sunburst squash piece in there. And that's basically dropping in the machine. And as I'm doing this, I'm not just taking one and dropping the next one as fast as I could do it, because the machine needs some time to work so that you get the best results. Next, let's go ahead and put some iceberg in there. And how about a piece of pear here? Let's go ahead and continue to juice. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue to juice all this stuff, and we're going to get a pile of juice. Basically, all I'm going to be doing is rotating what I'm feeding in, and we'll be back at you when I got a nice full container of juice. We're just about done juicing in the Omega Vert Juicer. As you can see, we got our pulp coming out here, and we've been having a nice stream of pulp coming out constantly, so the machine's been working quite well. And we have a whole pitcher of juice, probably about 4 cups, and we do have some foam. Now, some people get freaked out about foam. Foam will happen with most every juicer. You could just stir it in or ladle it off. When you normally strain the juice, the foam usually is left in the strainer, so you don't have to worry about it. Once you're done juicing, you can go ahead and stop the machine. We'll turn it off, and you can see the delicious juice here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to rejuice this juice. And how we do that is basically we're going to pour this juice back through the machine, and that's going to force the juice through the holes, and it's going to come out more pulp free than before. Before it actually had to separate the fiber from the juice, and now it has mostly juice to deal with and some fiber that'll end up coming out the ejection port. So to do this, we're going to need something else to catch our juice in, so I'm going to use a standard mason jar. Now, this mason jar doesn't fit in perfectly underneath there. It fits in a little bit of an angle, but I usually find this is not an issue. But before you start to rejuice your juice, it's very important to make sure that the machine was working properly and it's not in a backup mode. If pulp is not flowing out really well, then your machine's in a backup mode, and then trying to rejuice your juice will just end up in a mess and not work properly. One of the easy ways you could do this is go ahead and take the machine apart, and you're going to take out the auger. So you're going to carefully pull out the auger, and if you could pull out your auger and your auger is clean and there's not a lot of stuff in here, that proves that you're using the machine properly and that things are getting flowed through the machine. If I had pulled this out and it was full of pulp and things weren't moving, then you don't want to rejuice your juice. Just strain it, because if you try to rejuice your juice, it's just going to make a complete mess. Also, the screen on the inside should have very little pulp residue. Now, it will have some, and that's completely normal. So we're going to go ahead and put that auger back in there, put this juicer back together, and next we're going to go ahead and turn the machine on, and now we're just going to rejuice the juice. So we're going to pour a little bit in at a time, and what will happen is, as you can see, juice is instantly flowing, and that's because this juice is now actually going through the screen and the juicer. And very slowly you may see some pulp start to move out. Now, this is the residual pulp that's actually in your juice. Also, when you're feeding the juice in, you're going to get a backup of juice in the feed chute. And you just want to put it in there and give it some time to work, and it'll actually lower the level as more juice comes out. Now, you don't want to overload your feed chute. I generally never overfill it more than what can fit in the actual chute and not in the funnel area. So that's pretty much worked through. We're going to go ahead and add some more now. As you can see, the juice is now getting double filtered in the Omega Vert, and we're getting a little bit of pulp out as well. So this technique can take some time, but you're already going to clean the juicer anyway, so if you just run it through as a last step, it'll actually make a more pulp-free juice without having to buy, a strainer or something like that. So that's pretty much worked out. We're going to go ahead and pour this stuff through again. And just let it work down some more. And it looks like my mason jar is actually quite full of juice now, so we're going to go ahead and turn that off and swap this guy out. And here you go, a nice rejuiced juice. I am the life rejuicerator. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode learning how to rejuice your juice to make it more pulp-free in the Omega Vert Juicer. Once again, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.